ever feel like you know all the grammar rules, all the vocabulary, but when you open your mouth to speak, nothing comes out quickly?
Oh, absolutely, Mia. It's like your brain freezes completely. It's the dreaded silence, right?
Exactly. It's that moment where you need to say something simple, maybe ordering a coffee or explaining a project, and suddenly you feel stuck.
You want to sound perfect, and that desire for perfection actually stops the communication process.
So if that sounds familiar, you are in the right place today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Leo.
And I'm Mia.
Welcome to the English Blend. We make learning English natural and friendly.
Today we're talking about a smart strategy for language learning. Listening to podcasts for learning. Smart strategy.
We want to show you how listening actively can unlock your fluency, especially if you feel blocked by grammar.
Exactly. So grab your coffee and let's get started. This is a really important topic for A2 and B2 learners especially.
Because at those levels, you know a lot of pieces, but putting them together in real time is the challenge.
We need to stop seeing English learning as just memorizing rules. It's about communication.
It is. And to start that discussion, we have to define two crucial words that often get confused.
Yes, let's talk about fluency versus accuracy. They are related, but they are not the same thing at all.
Let's define them simply. Accuracy is about being correct. It means perfect grammar, using the right tense, spelling things correctly, having the correct word order.
Think of accuracy like the score on a written grammar test. If you get 10 out of 10, your accuracy is perfect.
Right, but fluency is different. Fluency is about flow, speed, and ease of communication. It means you can keep a conversation going without long pauses.
Fluency means that the listener understands your message quickly and easily. It's about the delivery of the message, not the perfection of every single word.
A great example. Imagine you are in a cafe and you say, "I wanting latte, big one."
That sentence is low in accuracy, right? The grammar is wrong. It should be, "I want a large latte."
Precisely. But the person behind the counter understands you perfectly. You got your point across. That is high fluency because communication was successful and fast.
That's a key point. Fluency is communication, not perfection. The goal of language is to share ideas.
If you have high accuracy but zero fluency, you might spend 5 minutes structuring the perfect sentence in your head, and by the time you speak, the conversation is already moved on.
That happens to me sometimes when I try to speak a language I'm learning. I'm busy translating word by word in my brain.
That translation process is a major fluency killer. It slows you down immensely.
So we need to focus less on the perfect structure and more on the output, just getting the words out.
Exactly. And this brings us to the biggest blocker for many learners, grammar.
The grammar block. It's almost universal for people who study English in a very traditional school setting.
In school, you are trained to prioritize accuracy because accuracy is easy to test. They give you a sentence, you fill in the gap with the correct verb tense, and you get a grade.
But real conversation is nothing like a test. Real conversation happens too quickly for you to think, is this the present perfect continuous or the past simple?
If you try to apply every single grammar rule in real-time speaking, you will stop constantly.
That stopping is where the fluency dies. You hesitate, you correct yourself internally, and you start to panic a little.
And the person listening to you, they might be polite, but they also get tired of waiting. They might finish your sentence for you, which makes you feel even more nervous.
The fear of making a mistake is much worse than the mistake itself. We call that fear performance anxiety in language learning. You are so worried about performing perfectly that you cannot perform at all.
It's like a singer who knows all the notes but is too scared to sing in front of an audience. The knowledge is there, but the output mechanism is blocked.
And often, native speakers break rules constantly, especially in casual speech. So trying to be more accurate than a native speaker is just a waste of energy.
That's so true. We use contractions, we cut words, we use informal phrases, things that would be marked wrong on a test.
So if we agree that fluency is key, and grammar rules often block that fluency, how do we fix it? We fix it by learning to speak in chunks and practicing automatic communication, and that's where listening comes in.
This is the core strategy of our episode. Using massive listening, particularly to podcasts like this one, as your tool.
When you listen to a podcast, you are hearing English used naturally, in real time, between two friendly speakers. You hear the flow, the fillers, right? And the rhythm.
You are not focusing on diagramming the sentence structure. You are focusing on the overall meaning.
And you start to absorb phrases instead of individual words. This is our first major tip.
Practical tip 1. Focus on chunks and phrases. Stop translating word for word in your head.
Think of language like building with Legos. If you only know individual bricks, words, building something takes forever. You have to connect them one by one.
But if you know pre-built sections, chunks, or phrases, like, I was just wondering if, or could you tell me about, you can connect those big pieces quickly.
These chunks are ready-made units. For example, instead of thinking, I, past tense of go, to the store, you just learn the chunk, I went to the store.
And you learn it by hearing it over and over again. This repetition is vital.
When you listen to a natural conversation, you hear how native speakers link sounds and words together.
For example, the phrase, what are you doing, sounds like what you doing. We don't say all the separate words cleanly.
If you only learned the grammar rules, when someone says, what you doing, you wouldn't recognize it. But if you listen to it frequently, your brain learns the sound pattern.
The pattern becomes automatic. It bypasses the conscious grammar checker in your brain.
So listen to this podcast or any other content you enjoy and repeat the common phrases you hear. Don't worry about the conjugation of the verb. Just repeat the whole phrase.
That brings us to practical tip 2, massive passive listening.
This sounds counterintuitive to some learners. They think learning must be hard work, sitting with a textbook and a dictionary.
And that is important for building accuracy. But for building fluency, you need high volume input.
Massive listening means having English playing in the background, even when you are doing chores, walking the dog, or cooking dinner.
You don't need to understand every single word. You are training your ear to the rhythm of the language.
Think of it like a baby. A baby doesn't sit down with a grammar book. They just listen for months and months before they start speaking.
Your brain is soaking up the sound frequencies and the common sentence structures unconsciously. This is building your subconscious language library.
If you listen for 30 minutes a day, every day, your familiarity with the natural speed of English will jump dramatically.
And you might think, I missed half of that conversation, and that's okay. The key is exposure.
The goal is to make the sounds familiar, so when you finally need to produce them, your brain says, oh, I've heard this sound pattern before. It feels natural.
Let's talk about a real-life situation where this makes a difference. Imagine you are in a new job and your boss says, could you wrap your head around this new spreadsheet by the end of the day?
If you translate that literally, wrap your head around, you would be very confused.
You might picture yourself putting a blanket on your head.
Exactly. But if you've heard the chunk wrap your head around multiple times in podcasts or movies, you instantly know it means understand or figure it out.
That's the power of listening for chunks. It speeds up comprehension and eventually production.
Speaking of speed and production, let's talk about our third practical tip. This one is about bravery.
Ooh, I like bravery. Practical tip 3. Embrace the 3-second rule or less.
The 3-second rule is simple. When someone asks you a question, you must start speaking within 3 seconds, even if your answer is imperfect.
The moment you let the silence stretch past 3 seconds,
The grammar block rushes back in, and you start analyzing everything.
You start panicking, thinking, did I use the correct auxiliary verb? Should I use the if clause here?
And then you hit a wall. That's a useful phrase right there. To hit a wall means you suddenly feel stuck and cannot continue because of difficulty.
Yes, hitting a wall can happen in studying, running, or speaking English. It means you stop progressing.
The 3-second rule forces you to use the language you already have, right now, instead of waiting for the perfect words you haven't learned yet.
If you have to pause, use a filler word instead of silence. That keeps the communication channel open.
Fillers like or let me see are 100% natural and common in English. They buy you time, but they maintain the flow.
Don't be afraid to use them. They are part of fluency. They signal to the listener, I am thinking, but I haven't finished my turn yet.
Let's link this to a cultural note. In many cultures, particularly those focused heavily on formal testing, there's enormous pressure to always be precise.
Yes, some education systems emphasize written correctness so much that students become fearful of oral communication.
I remember a friend from Japan who was brilliant at grammar tests, truly incredible scores. But when we went out to grab street food, he couldn't ask for a napkin.
Why? Because he was trying to translate the perfect, polite, formal Japanese request into English, and the mental effort was too high and too slow.
He was striving for academic accuracy when all he needed was communicative fluency. If he had just pointed and said, napkin, please, it would have been successful communication.
And the person serving him would not have judged his grammar. They would have simply given him the napkin. Success.
That leads perfectly into our first key phrase for today. Get your point across.
When you get your point across, it means you successfully communicate your idea or intention regardless of how perfect the language used was.
If you're at a work meeting and you need to explain your idea for the new marketing campaign, the most important thing is that the team understands the idea.
It doesn't matter if you accidentally used teached instead of taught once. If the rest of your explanation flows well, you got your point across.
So remember that goal. Success is communication, not linguistic perfection.
Let's move on to practical tip 4, shadowing. This is directly related to using podcasts and audio resources.
Shadowing means listening to a short piece of audio, maybe just one sentence or a dialogue exchange, and immediately trying to repeat it exactly as you heard it. You are mimicking the sound, the rhythm, the intonation, and the speed. You are literally being the shadow of the speaker.
This trains your mouth and your muscles to produce sounds that might not exist in your native language.
It helps with stress patterns too. English uses stress heavily. We stress certain words in a sentence to change the meaning. For example, if I say, I didn't steal the cookie, it implies someone else did. If I say, I didn't steal the cookie, it implies I stole something else.
Shadowing helps you internalize those small, crucial musical elements of the language without analyzing the technical rules.
Use short clips, maybe 15 seconds long. Listen once, listen again while reading the transcript if available, and then shadow immediately. Don't worry about understanding the deep meaning initially. Focus only on copying the sound. You are training yourself like an actor.
This builds that muscle memory, so when you speak, the sounds are automatic, and you don't have to think about where to place your tongue or how wide to open your mouth.
And finally, let's discuss our last practical tip for today, related to overcoming that fear of hitting a wall.
Practical tip 5. Reframe mistakes. They are not the end of the world.
That brings us perfectly to our second useful phrase. It's not the end of the world.
If something is not the end of the world, it means it's not a disaster, it's not catastrophic, and it's generally a minor problem.
If you make a grammar mistake, it's not the end of the world. If you forget a word in a conversation, it's not the end of the world.
We use this phrase to remind ourselves and others to relax and keep perspective.
Imagine you were speaking to a client at work. You accidentally confuse advice, uncountable, with pieces of advice.
Your client might notice, but they won't cancel the contract over it. They understood the core message. It's not the end of the world.
The real disaster is silence, stopping, or being so worried about accuracy that you fail to communicate entirely.
Making mistakes is actually evidence that you are learning. If you're not making mistakes, you're not pushing your boundaries. You're staying in your comfort zone.
Think of it like learning to ride a bike. You fall down, you scratch your knee, but the falling is part of the process of learning balance.
You wouldn't yell at a child for falling off a bike, right? You encourage them to try again. Be that encouraging friend to yourself when you speak English.
We talked about using podcasts, and I think one of the best things about listening to content like ours is that we use everyday, relatable examples.
Yes, we try to put these idioms and tips into contexts you might actually experience.
Like ordering food, talking about your morning routine, or handling a simple conversation at the bus stop.
Because that's where English actually lives, in those small, daily interactions, not just in formal exams.
Let's review those core concepts one more time because they are so important for fluency.
Fluency versus accuracy. Fluency is flow and communication. Accuracy is correctness. Focus on fluency first.
Grammar block. Don't let the need for perfection stop your speech. Prioritize output.
Practical tip 1. Chunks. Learn ready-made phrases instead of translating word by word.
Practical tip 2. Massive listening. Train your ear to the sound and rhythm, even if it's passive listening.
Practical tip 3. 3-second rule. Force yourself to start speaking quickly to avoid the mental analysis paralysis.
Practical tip 4. Shadowing. Mimic sounds and intonation to build muscle memory.
Practical tip 5. Mistakes are learning. Remember, it's not the end of the world if you mess up.
And our key phrases: get your point across, focus on the message, hit a wall, feel stuck or unable to continue. It's not the end of the world. Mistakes are minor.
So, how do we apply this strategy starting tomorrow? Simple. Listen to English content every day.
Find podcasts, YouTube videos, or audiobooks that you genuinely enjoy. If you like the content, you're more likely to listen massively.
Start small. 15 minutes of dedicated listening where you try to shadow, and 30 minutes of passive listening while you clean the house.
Consistency over intensity. Better to do 15 minutes every day than 3 hours once a month. Daily practice is key.
When you speak, just aim to get your point across. Don't worry if you pause or use a filler. That's natural.
And if you find yourself hitting a wall, take a deep breath, use a simple phrase, and remind yourself, it's not the end of the world.
Exactly. Your listeners and conversational partners appreciate the effort and the flow much more than they care about a misplaced comma or a slightly wrong preposition.
So, keep practicing, keep listening, and keep speaking. That is the smart strategy for fluency.
That was a great talk. We hope these tips help you break through those grammar blocks and feel more confident speaking.
Yes, and next time on The English Blend, we are going to dive into the best ways to expand your vocabulary quickly using flashcards and spaced repetition.
Don't miss it. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of The English Blend.
We appreciate you listening. See you in the next episode of The English Blend.